Hello, everyone, and welcome to the 24th ever Highlight Haven interview. My name's Matthew Heiserman, and today we are joined by a very special guest. He is a former NFL wide receiver and the host of Believe in Commanders. Let me welcome Anthony Armstrong to the show. It's great to have you on.
Hey man, thanks for having me. I'm excited for it. I'm going to get pulled over so I can be nice and safe because we're going to talk about these commanders, talk about this football season.
Now let's get right into it. I just want to start by asking when you first knew that you wanted to become an NFL player.
Man, I knew that I wanted to be an NFL player. Honestly, it was when I was, shoot, maybe 6 or 7 years old. I had always wanted to play football and to get to the NFL, that was always the end goal. But like, to not you didn't really know it was going to be a thing until I got to be about like 22, 23 years old where it was actually within reach. But at the time, I was just young. It was just a guy with a big dream, and it was something I always wanted to reach for, and I was patient enough to keep working at it.
Now obviously you were born right around Indianapolis and went to high school in Texas. With that being said, was there an NFL team you rooted for when you were growing up?
Man, I grew up a Cowboys fan. My mom's from Dallas, dad's from Texas, and growing up in the Dallas area, that's who you cheered for. So I was a big fan of Michael Irvin, Emmitt Smith, uh, the triplets, right? So that was the team to follow, and that's who I was cheering for. My first football team was called the Cowboys. We're 22, so you knew what I looked up to. You knew who I enjoyed growing up.
Now in terms of your path to make the NFL, it started at Newman Smith High School, followed by playing college football at West Texas A&M. Then you played for the Odessa Roughnecks in the Intense Football League and the Dallas Desperados in the Arena Football League before obviously making the NFL. How would you describe the journey you've taken to get to where you are today?
Man, the journey to get to the NFL and really to where I am now is it's something that you wouldn't even dream of. Definitely circuitous, a long route, something that required patience, perseverance, and just you know digging and staying committed to the craft and staying committed to the cause. And it's something that I'm proud of the journey. I'm proud to have gone through it because it made me a lot. It made me a better person now. Like I know that I can go through a lot more adversity. I can handle a lot of things simply because of the path that I took to get to the NFL.
Now you went undrafted in the 2005 NFL draft, and despite playing your first career game as a Redskin, you were actually signed by the Miami Dolphins in 2008. What was going through your mind when the Dolphins signed you, just knowing that your goal of making the NFL had finally been accomplished after all these prior setbacks?
Man, I tell you, when I got that phone call from the Dolphins, I was very surprised because I didn't have anybody in my phone that was from the 954 area code, and I picked it up. It was one of the executives from the Dolphins, and I was totally surprised. But it was one of those things where it was going to take a couple of weeks before I actually got down there to the team, and when I finally made it and I was down there going into training camp, that's when I was like, okay, wow, this is a thing, I'm here in the NFL. It was soon after that I really realized that I needed to get on the field. So getting there was one thing, looking around the locker room and seeing, Joey Porter and Ronnie Brown and me being in the Dolphins facility, meeting Bill Parcells, like that was all crazy. But then I actually had to get on the field.
Now obviously you mentioned that you were a Cowboys fan growing up. Speaking of the Cowboys, that's who you played in your first career game. It was on September 12th, 2010. You finished that game with one reception for 11 yards. Can you describe what the nerves were like heading into that matchup?
Man, I was so nervous simply because one, the Cowboys game is the biggest rivalry for Washington. Anything about Dallas, like it's hate Dallas. And so to play that rival, the team that I grew up watching, the team that I thought was going to bring me in initially, it was one to get some get back, and the nerves were real. Shoot, I think I dropped my first pass. Might have dropped my first two couple of passes right there in the end zone. So I should have had a touchdown moment, but I didn't. And I ended up with one catch for 11 yards. So the nerves were there, but to be able to get through that first game, um, it was big because everything kind of settled down and slowed down as the season went on.
Yeah, I mean, do you think that some of those nerves were because of the rivalry game and the fact that that was your favorite team, when you were younger?
Oh, absolutely, man. I mean, you because you kind of I knew some of the guys over there because I played for the Desperados, which were owned by Jerry Jones, and we trained at the facility. We trained at Valley Ranch a lot of times, so you would see a lot of the players, and you would know them a little bit, and so to see them now being on the other side on the for the Redskins at that time, it was real cool. It was cool because like, hey, I finally made this ascent and got up here to this level. Plus, I mean, hell, I got family. Everybody down here in Dallas was cheering for Dallas, but they would cheer for me in that matchup. But overall, they were still Cowboys fans too.
Yeah, so did you have connections with some of the players you played against in that game against Dallas?
Yeah, a couple of guys. I mean, I remember, I would see Marion Barber, rest in peace. You would see him up at the facilities from time to time. We would have our late, the Desperados could go in after the Cowboys were done, use the hot tub, steam room, stuff like that. So I'd go up there, and sometimes you'd see him and a couple other guys. I mean, Jason Hatcher was a guy I ended up meeting, and seeing Jason Witten from time to time in there too.
Yeah, now, of course, your first career touchdown came against the Green Bay Packers in week 5 of the 2010 NFL season. Redskins quarterback Donovan McNabb connected with you on a 48-yard play that put Washington within 3 points of the Packers, and the Redskins ended up winning that game 16-13. What was going through your mind during that play?
What was going through my mind, Matt? Look, man, I ran my route. I knew when they called it, I looked up, I saw we had the cover two coverage that was going to dictate that I got the ball. So when I ran my route, I broke out to the right, made the safety think I was going to the corner, and I broke back to that post. And I looked up, and the ball wasn't there. I'm like, where's the ball? It should be thrown to me. And I looked to gauge my sight again. I looked back up, and then the ball had shown up. It was a little bit late. So I knew I had to go up and make a play. I had to go up and catch the ball because the DB was catching back up to me. And man, all I could focus on was the ball flying through the air. My hands went up to it. And once it hit my hands, I was squeezing so hard that it was like nobody was going to take this ball away from me. The DB was trying to knock the ball out, and I just held it out. And we hit the ground, and then I started hitting the Dougie. So I had to hit my touchdown dance. I hit the celly because FedEx Field was jumping that day.
Yeah, and in your rookie season alone, you had a 40-plus yard reception in 7 different games. I think it's safe to say that one of your best traits as a wide receiver was your speed. With that being said, is there a current player in the NFL that you think shows a lot of similarities to how you played?
Man, oh man, I'm loving what I see from Jameson Williams.
Yeah.
It's kind of some recency bias, having seen him on with the Lions and what he does, but the way he affects the team and affects the field vertically, it really opens up that offense. I mean, you obviously think of like Tyreek Hill. Not saying I played like Tyreek Hill, but we talk about having speed. Now we both were fast. I was fast, and Tyreek's fast. Uh, just being able to have speed and elite speed really opens up the field. And anybody that's getting down the field like that, Tank Dell, shout out to Tank Dell. He's another guy that I like watching play. He's making plays down there in Houston.
Yeah, now, of course, you've had a lot of teammates throughout your career on various different teams. That said, between all of your teammates, who would you say was the best guy to be around?
Oh man, a lot of great teammates. A lot that I'm friends with. I know one, Darrell Young's a great friend that was up there in Washington. Lorenzo Alexander, great friend. Still connect with him from time to time. We link up. So there's a lot of good guys. I don't have everybody's phone numbers, but whenever there's like an alumni weekend and we get back up there, it's like you didn't miss a beat. Everybody's a little bit older, don't walk as good, but you still have great jokes and your relationships are still there.
Yeah, now I want to transition over to some Commanders questions, but before that, I just want to ask how the opportunity arose for you to become the host of Believing Commanders.
Man, I tell you, at the time I was considering doing a podcast. I had been, kind of come to grips with wanting to get back into staying connected with football side of things. And they reached out, and the timing was right. It was something I was open to do, and they had a great co-host in Brian Murphy, and I was glad to be able to sync up with him, and we have good chemistry. And I enjoy, connecting with the fans and being able to talk to them directly through that podcast and send, some support this team with them. So, it's kind of by happenstance, but things don't happen by accident.
Yeah, now this past Saturday, the Commanders placed Austin Eckler on IR, meaning that he will be out for at least 4 games. The soonest Eckler can come back is in week 18 against the Cowboys. Obviously, Chris Rodriguez Jr. filled his role really well in the Commanders' last game against the Titans. What do you think this move is going to mean for Washington throughout the remainder of the season?
Man, I think that you just have to go. You're going into it with just a little bit less screen game. What Austin brought to the running back position with his ability to run routes, matchups out of the backfield. You kind of lose that. B Rob can catch the ball, but he's not really gonna. You don't want him to go out there having to run routes all game. I want to hand him the ball so he can get to running downhill. The transition is now you have two big bulls in the backfield with Rodriguez Jr. and Robinson Jr. that are going to be able to continue to get physical with defenses as it gets late into the season. This is, it's one of those things where it's unfortunate to have somebody get hurt, but it may work out better for the offense by having another bruising running back to keep that same momentum.
Yeah, now would you expect Jeremy McNichols maybe to take that receiving role of Eckler at all?
I mean, if he can fit in, I'm sure that the coaches are evaluating everybody's skill sets, and if it ends up being that he's able to take some of those plays, then so be it. But he's a great run block. He's a great pass blocker, and he's shown some explosiveness in the run game as well. So yeah, definitely expect to see Jeremy McNichols get some action. I'm interested to see how they disperse those extra reps because now, instead of thinking of it being two guys, now you got to think of how to disperse those running plays across three running backs.
Yeah, now another move the Commanders made on Saturday was releasing Emmanuel Forbes, who was their first round draft pick in 2023. This means that all 4 of Washington's first round picks under Ron Rivera are no longer on the team. While things didn't work out with Forbes, a young corner who has looked extremely promising for Washington is Mike Sanistril. And obviously, you had to face countless cornerbacks throughout your career. So tell me, is there a specific thing about Sanistro's game that's really impressed you so far?
Man, I think Mike Sanders still is understanding this game because he's played the receiver position. And ironically enough, not ironically enough, look at the history of Joe Witt and Dan Quinn. DBs that have played receiver in that have went from receiver to DB that have played for these coaches have had success. Deron Bland and Trevon Diggs are two guys that come to mind. I think Sanders still is very smart, and since he had played receiver, he understands what the receiver is thinking, uh, how he's going to attack a DB. So I think he uses that to his advantage. But he's a very heady guy. He gives me some Matthew Slater vibes. But he actually doesn't have to live. He's not doing everything on special teams. He's actually finding a good role at that outside cornerback position. So Sam still's making a big impact for his defense, and I'm excited to see how he matches up with the rest of the season.
Now, obviously, speaking of cornerback, Marshawn Lattimore has missed his first 4 games as a commander due to a hamstring injury. This is obviously a big blow for Washington, a team that needs all the cornerback help they can get. What are your expectations for Lattimore once he returns to the field?
I mean, you're going to get a dog. I mean, that's who he said he is when he comes in there, somebody that competes. And I think he's going to give you options to say, hey, you go over there and take their number one receiver and shut him down. That's what you're going to get from Marshawn Lattimore. And I don't think you have to worry too much about taking these extra 4 weeks to get him healthy because, frankly, hamstrings can be annoying. And it's not something that you want to throw somebody out there too early because what would have been 4 weeks turns into 6 weeks. Now he's not available for the playoffs. So having him ready now, these last 4 weeks of the year going into the playoffs, look at the matchups. Philadelphia with A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith, C.D. Lamb, Drake London, and then New Orleans. So New Orleans has MVS and Olave could be back. They've got uh, Rashid at the deep threat as well. So you need him right now at this point of the season where you can stack another couple of wins and find yourself in a good spot to playoffs.
And obviously, assuming Lattimore makes his first start as a commander against his former team, that'll be super exciting to watch. Now, I think it's safe to say that Terry McLaurin is on pace to have the best season of his career. Through 13 games, he has 896 receiving yards, which ranks third among all wide receivers in the NFL. He also has 9 touchdowns on the year, which is the most touchdowns he's ever had in a single season. As a former wide receiver yourself, what would you say impresses you the most about McLaurin's game?
Man, I can say that the guy is extremely consistent, right? To have this level of success that he's had throughout his career, he's one of the only 4 or 5 receivers. I think he might be the fifth, if not only the fourth, that has had 50 receptions and 900 yards in their first 6 years in the league. Right, very, very prestigious position to be in. He's on track for yet another 1,000-yard season. The guy's consistent regardless of who's throwing him the rock. Now he has somebody that has some talent back there. Not no shade to the other guys, but Jaden Daniels is pretty good. He's back there. He's making plays. He's getting them the ball. And you're seeing what type of player that he is. I still think he goes for 100 yards and 100 receptions and 1,300 yards. 10 touchdowns is in play. Let's push that number up to 12 or 13 because he's got 4 games left in the season. Terry McLaurin is an elite receiver in this league, and I'm glad he's wearing burgundy and gold.
Yeah, now I think when you talk about consistency, especially from a year-to-year basis, he's had 4 straight seasons with over 1,000 receiving yards. But in terms of this season alone, he's had 4 games as well with under 25 receiving yards. Do you trust his ability to be a number one receiver on a contending team?
Absolutely. I mean, he can get it done. And I think that he's the type of player that's not going to complain about not getting targets. He deserves to. He deserves to get 10 targets a game, but he understands that sometimes the defense can determine where the ball goes. They're going to run a safety over the top, play a little cover two to Terry's side, and that can determine that the ball is not going that way. And that's how the league happens sometimes. But it's a challenge to the offensive coordinator. It's a challenge to those offensive coaches to find some ways to get Terry the ball in unique scenarios. Get him the ball in easy ones. I mean, you see Jamar Chase, you see the Justin Jeffersons, you see C.D. Lambs. They get 5 or 6 very easy catches that just get them started, right? So if you give Terry some of those plays, now you start to see his numbers go up and you see him have great production. I think this last game against Tennessee, the guy had 8 targets. That was the most he's had in a while. He averages about 6 a game. So I would love to get him to that 10 number more times than not. But hey, I'll take for what we're getting right now.
Yeah, now Washington, following their win against Tennessee, has just over a 70% chance to make the playoffs. Assuming they do get in as a wild card, do you think this is a team that can realistically make some noise?
Oh, absolutely, man. I mean, you hear how Bill Belichick talked about it. Once you get in the tournament, all bets are off, right? All you gotta do is show up, and then if it goes from week to week, if you have a matchup against a team, you take advantage of it. There's no apologies, no apologies for having a better matchup than some other teams are. You know, you get what you get, and you don't throw that fit. I do think that once you're in the playoffs, teams have to think about how you're going to unveil this thing, and I think there's a lot of uncertainty for other teams to consider how this team is going to look moving forward, right? How do you look without Austin Eckler? How do you look when you're trying to get Terry the ball in different locations? How do you look on defense with Marshawn Lattimore at corner? Can you change up how you attack from the safeties? Is Jeremy Chin in the box more? So there's different variants that you're going to get from this team moving forward. I don't know how much you're going to see from other teams. So I think that the unknown factor behind how they're going to run this team and offense and defense is going to be helpful moving forward.
Yeah, now of course this week the Commanders are on a bye. However, they do play the New Orleans Saints in Week 15, who are currently 4-8. Their last game was a loss to the Rams, 21-14. What are the keys to victory for Washington in this matchup?
Man, the keys to victory, I think right now is going to be about them playing within themselves. Right, it's not so much about trying to figure out what the other team is doing, but you have to show up and have the right type of recipe each week. Getting out early, All right, I want to see early points. I want to see a solid offensive drive, starting early on offense, being aggressive on defense. That way you can set the tone. Because now your mentality is we're preparing ourselves for the playoffs. You have Bobby Wagner in the building. You've got Zach Ertz in the building, guys who have been to the Super Bowl. They have been deep into the playoffs. They know what it takes to prepare right now. So that's what I want to see. A team that shows up fast and aggressive, uh, trying to make some noise and dictating to the New Orleans Saints how they're going to play this game.
Yeah, and as we've gotten closer to the end of the season, it feels like the Rookie of the Year race between Jaden Daniels and Bo Nix continues to get more and more competitive. Obviously, a lot can change during the final stretch of the season, but as of right now, who do you have winning the award?
I'm still going to go with Jaden Daniels. I'm not go. Oh, hold on. Did I leave you?
We are facing some technical difficulties right now. We hope to get Anthony Armstrong back soon, but I guess while he's out, I'll cast my opinion on this whole Jaden Daniels Bo Nix conversation. And I think for me,
Solid.
I was just casting my opinion real quick while you were gone,
Go
just to
ahead.
pass the time. I don't think it's that close, to be honest. I think, and I was able to talk about this. I had an interview on Monday with a Commanders Hogs Haven analyst, host of a Commanders podcast, Trap or Dive, and we were basically saying how I think people recency bias has definitely played a big factor in this, and people are forgetting what Daniels did in the first 9, 8 weeks of the season.
Yeah.
Obviously, Washington went in that little offensive slump in between that time. But I think Jaden's consistency to start the season, he was breaking records what felt like every single week. I just think it's hard not to give it to him, considering, and also you take a team that has no business being 8-5 right now. They're 8-5, contending for one of the top seeds in the NFC. It's hard not to say that Jaden would be my vote.
No, you're 100% correct. I mean, you think it from where the team went to where they are now. They're definitely making some noise, and no discredit to Bo Nix. You know, he is having a great season. I think that his matchup with Sean Payton can kind of poke the bear a little bit and get the most out of Bo Nix, and he's a competitor. So that's kind of a marriage that's kind of made in heaven, I guess. But I'm still hanging with Jaden, man. I think that he's still got some magic left in him. A few more magical moments than what Bo's put out there. So give it to Jaden Daniels for me.
Yeah, obviously, I'm going to have to agree with you there. Now, I do have one final question to ask. If there was one piece of advice you could give to an aspiring sports broadcaster or journalist like me, what would it be?
Man, I tell you, do keep taking action. Keep taking action. I tell you, there's a story of a guy that I met very similar to you. He was a young cat, reached out well before video was out there. I think it was on MySpace that he found me, and he was wanted to do an article about me as a player at the Desperados. Ended up following him onto Twitter and so on and so forth. This guy had found his way into a job with the Dolphins at one point. I think he works with the Atlanta Hawks organization. So just keep working at it. You know, you ask great questions. Uh, follow the game, get involved. Don't be afraid to reach out to players because we're, guys are out there. They'll gladly do interviews. They'd love to talk with you, and you just love seeing people living their dream and reaching for something. So just keep it up. Don't get discouraged, and keep pushing.
Yeah, and you are actually the first NFL or former NFL player to ever join the podcast. So obviously, I really do appreciate that. With that being said, I can't thank you enough for coming on. I really do appreciate it. Is there anything else you want to say to the people watching before we wrap things up?
Man, I say number one, I say thank you for having me. Glad to be the first one. Make sure you send me the link so I can share it, and then make sure y'all also follow I Believe Commanders. Listen to the podcast because this is a fun conversation. Maybe I have to get you on my podcast, and you can share your insight over there for my people as well.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I would love that. So just let me know. You know how to reach out to me. Again, big thanks to Anthony Armstrong for being the 24th ever Highlight Haven interview guest. And as always, we will see you next time.